Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Kentucky, because they are on the other side of this game. Louisville wins 96-88. And as I just said a minute ago, I think you can absolutely argue that that game actually wasn't really as close as the final score would indicate. An 8-point victory that was a 20-point game with 12 minutes to go. And listen, credit to Kentucky for coming back. Credit to Colin Chandler, Cam Williams, all that. But the counter to that is you did not look good for large stretches. And oh, by the way, on top of it, the defense wasn't good enough. Certain guys appear to be regressing. And I think it continues this trend of, Mark Pope teams just maybe not showing up in some games for this team and for this program. And so let's break it down from the Kentucky side. By the way, if you're a Louisville fan finding this video, we already talked about Louisville. Don't get mad. I'm not giving you credit. Once you hear what I said about Louisville, you're going to love what I had to say. But there is, the negative side of this with Kentucky. And the standards, it simply wasn't good enough. Mark Pope said it after the game. This is not our standard. And I think the first thing that I don't know if worry is the right word, but I think frustrate to me might be the right word. I just don't think Kentucky really showed up ready to play. I think early on, first 7 or 8 minutes they did, and then they got kind of punched in the mouth, and there was really no response to it, okay? And this, to me, it almost has like a little bit of a Kalen DeBoer after the Florida State game earlier this year in college football, where Kalen DeBoer, year one, couple just total no-shows from the Kalen DeBoer side. It was Vandy last year. It was Oklahoma. It was Michigan in the bowl game. And then you open the season getting punked by Florida State, and it's like, okay, we got a problem here. And I do think there's a little bit of that with Kentucky. You go back to last year, kind of a weird combination of losses at unexpected times with complete no-shows. I would argue the Ohio State game last year in New York City, complete no-show. You lose to Georgia on the road, probably not fully ready to play. You lose also on the road last season. I'm trying to remember some of these games. Listen, you had the Arkansas game at home where Arkansas was 1-5 in league play. You were probably a double-digit favorite. You don't win that game. And so, one, I just don't think when you get punched in the mouth, you respond well enough. And then two, I do think right now, here in November, there are some big picture issues with this team. First off, defense just wasn't good enough. Okay, and let me say this because I tweeted this out. If you remember, so Kentucky so far, they play Purdue in the exhibition slate. They then play Georgetown, but they have neither of their guards. I defended the fact that they didn't look good against Georgetown because when you don't have your 2-point guards, that's going to hurt. They don't really have either for the Nichols game, Jalen Lowe or Denzel Aberdeen. Denzel Aberdeen does come off, start the second half and play really well, and you kind of roll away. But after the Nichols game, the offense had struggled, and then they struggled also in the Georgetown exhibition. And so after the game, Mark Pope was like, well, why is the offense struggling so much? Now, I think he should have just said, hey, we don't have our point guard. It's going to look different once we get Jalen Lowe back. But instead, he chose another alternative. He said, quote, we're focused on the defense at practice. And so I tweeted this out. And Matt, if you have that tweet, you could pop it up. Is, when Louisville's running all over the floor and they're putting up 53 points in the first half, my question was, didn't Mark Pope say that they had only been working on defensive practice as of late? And then I went and found the transcript after the Nichols game, which was the opening night of college hoops, or it was technically the second night. It was Kentucky's opening game. And that was how Mark Pope answered the question. The question that he was posed after the Nichols game, it seemed like you guys really struggled to penetrate in the first half. Was there an emphasis in the second half? And he said he led the answer by saying, well, all we do is work on the defensive end at practice right now, so we're going to have to spend a little bit more time on offense. And I remember thinking at the time, one, if that was something John Calipari said 2 years ago, it would be World War III in the comment section and the media, because Cal used to say stuff like that all the time in the early part of the season, and he'd get killed for it. But two, if you were working on defense at practice all week long, and had a funny way of showing it, because as I said, Louisville 53 points in the first half, overall shot 45% from the field. Defense simply isn't good enough. I think the other thing, as far as a negative is concerned, and I do want to get to some positives, it's November 12th today. There's no reason to freak out because guess what? It's really hard to win on the road. We'll talk about that in a minute. But the other negative is some of your returnees, some of the guys that you were expecting to take a leap, just haven't done it. Now, Otega Owe did not play for 2 months because of an injury. He had a turf toe injury, basically out from like late July till late September. So I want to give him a little bit of a pass, but, just he hasn't been good enough. And by the way, maybe that's just he's not healthy. And if he's not healthy, you don't have to play him 28 minutes, especially when Colin Chandler's playing well, especially when you only play Jasper Johnson 6 minutes. I just think that he's either regressed. He's certainly, the body language doesn't look good. Now, I think the body language may be because he's struggling. I don't think it's a chicken or an egg thing. I think it's a chicken and the egg thing. I think it's the body language stinks because he's not playing well, and he's not playing well. And the point is, he's not right. And if it's the injury, if it's the attitude, if it's too much NIL, I don't know what it is. I am going to default to he's not at 100%. But if he's not at 100%, you're not obligated to play him 28 minutes. But he isn't good enough. Again, not to compare everything to Arkansas, but I heard a lot of Kentucky fans chirping about Carter Knox the other night. Well, Otega Owe struggling as well. The other thing that I would say about Kentucky, and listen, I feel less guilty saying this about college athletes now. Brandon Garrison just isn't good enough. McDonald's All-American a couple years ago, played at Oklahoma State, transfers to Kentucky, played behind Amari Williams last year. This is supposed to be the year that he's making the leap, that he is a serviceable center in the SEC. And I think maybe the first sign that the Kentucky staff wasn't sold on him being that was the fact that they signed Jaden Quaintance in the offseason. And so Brandon Garrison just isn't good enough right now. Like I said, he got punked by Sonata Frew. I don't really see the effort there. I'm not like a big, whatever. I don't criticize effort. I don't know what's going on. But I will tell you this. Listen, in this NIL world, you either got to perform or you got to get out of the way. If I'm Mark Pope, I'm thinking about starting Malachi Moreno next game because Malachi Moreno is bringing it and at least playing hard. I don't know if Brandon Garrison is doing that. And I also think just in this world, you can't feel guilty about sitting guys on the bench. You're getting paid a lot of money. Figure it the you-know-what out. And so I think those are some of the frustrating things for Kentucky. I think it'll be interesting. Pope has historically, his best teams at BYU played a lot of guys. I still think he will, but I think he's got to figure out some rotations. I will say, I think he's got to start Jalen Lowe. I think I understand he was injured to begin the year. You want to ease him into the lineup. No. This is your highly paid transfer point guard. Put him in your starting lineup. And certainly with the shoulder, I do hope he gets better. If we want to be positive about Kentucky, because one, I think it's really hard to win on the road. Listen, Kansas lost at North Carolina. Arkansas lost at Michigan State. It's not easy to go on the road this early in the year and beat good teams, right? And so I'm not that worried big picture. I do think there are some things that need to get figured out. I do think the defense simply has to be better. I do think part of it is, you need Jaden Quaintance back. Now, what you can expect from him when he comes back off of ACL surgery, that I cannot answer. I don't think anybody's going to know, including Jaden Quaintance, until it actually happens. But it doesn't change the fact that, in my opinion, the defensive effort needs to get better. You got to figure out what's going on with Otega Owe. But if we're looking at positives, opportunity, when guys are struggling, it creates opportunities for others. And other guys certainly stepped up on Monday night. Colin Chandler, I'll give myself a little bit of a pat on the back. I remember the first exhibition game Kentucky played last year. I want to say it was like maybe, I don't know. I can't remember who. But Colin Chandler comes out and I'm like, oh, that's an NBA player. Now, he might be a 22-year-old fourth-year college player, NBA player, but that's an NBA player right there. So I thought he looked very good. Cam Williams came off the bench and provided you a little bit of a spark. I still really like what Malachi Moreno brings. And I'll be honest, I think Andrea Jelovich is another one too. Now, I understand he's not the most athletic guy, and that was a hyper-athletic game. But I don't know. Let me put it this way. I did not love the rotations. I thought there was a moment in time where I'm like, why is Colin Chandler not playing? I know he's in foul trouble, but get him in more. And again, I've said my Malachi Moreno spiel and I've said my Jalen Lowe spiel. I think the starting lineup, go with the guys that are going to be starters. Jalen Lowe, Denzel Aberdeen, Otega Owe, Mo Diabate, and I would put in Malachi Moreno. And then you just got to weather the storm until Jaden Quaintance gets back and you have some semblance of a full team. Good thing for Kentucky, you get a couple, you get a game to get it right against Eastern Illinois. Then you got Michigan State. Then you really got a little bit of a stretch before it gets really crazy. December is going to be insane. UNC at home, St. John's on a neutral, Gonzaga on a neutral, Indiana on a neutral. So Michigan State now becomes a little bit more of a must win, but I don't want to overreact to everything, but I also just, we got to call a spade, and that performance was not very impressive.